Okay. Well, so good afternoon officially. My name is Amy Carpenter. I'm the Communications Associate with Kentucky Resources Council. I'm sure you are here today because you are familiar with who we are, but if you're not, just KRC is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we exist to protect Kentucky's natural and built environments. We are incredibly pleased that you have joined us today as we discuss our beloved home state and how we can care for it and how we can care for each other. For those of you who are maybe new to KRC, welcome. For those of you who are old-time friends of KRC, welcome back. And before we get started hearing from our main speakers today, Tom FitzGerald and Ashley Wilmes, I want to introduce you all to one of our activities throughout today's event. We are going to be taking a few minutes throughout today's event to do some trivia questions that are KRC focused. What we'll do is I will read a series of 3 trivia questions so throughout this afternoon. So please, keep those ears open. And if you want to play, you have 60 seconds to submit your answer through the chat directly to me. So make sure, keep those answers secret and turn on the chat. And if you haven't used the chat before, there should be a drop-down option and you can select to choose me specifically. That's Amy Carpenter, and just submit your answers in there. For everyone who plays and gets the answer right, you'll be submitted into a drawing for a prize for each question. So that's 3 prizes today. Plus it'll be really, really fun. And I would love to see all of your all's answers. So before I get started with kind of the main event today, our first trivia question is, so just a reminder, if you're ready, if you want to play, get those fingers ready to submit your answers to me via the chat. So first trivia question, when was the last time Tom FitzGerald shined his legislative shoes? You have 60 seconds to answer via chat to me. These are already amazing answers. I really love the thought everyone is putting into these answers. You all are doing wonderful. Some of you are definitely right, some of you are wrong, but all of you are winners in my book. All right, and I think that's time.
Time's up, I think.
I think you're right, Betsy, so I'm gonna let you take it over.
Good afternoon. My name is Betsy Bennett. I'm an attorney in Louisville and vice chair of the Kentucky Resources Council Board. Fitz and I first met in 1983. I was just starting as editor of the Sierra Club newspaper, and Fitz had written an article for me. So without consulting him, I decided to edit the heck out of his work. And when the paper was published and he saw what I'd done, he let me know loud and clear what he thought of my work. And I must admit I deserved it. But despite that rough beginning, we're good friends today, and I'm proud to be part of KRC. And I'm proud to be part of the work of mounting legal defenses to protect our shared environment. It's my privilege today to introduce KRC's founder and first director, Tom FitzGerald. Fitz?
Thank you. It's great to have everybody here. This is like my favorite Hollywood Squares screen. Paul Lind isn't here, but I'll take this screen any day of the week. Thank you all for being here. We are all hopeful that next year KRC will again be meeting in person, that we will have gotten a much better handle on the pandemic and that everyone can safely gather. But this is certainly the next best thing. And I want to thank you all for attending, and I want to thank staff for all their hard work in putting this together. They make this job of being a senior staff seem really easy. I came of age during the era of Reagan. I'd started doing activist work in 1972, but it really was when I became sworn in as an attorney and started working with the Appalachian Research and Defense Fund, that we saw the sea change from a nation that governed from the middle, in which environmental protection was a long delayed, but was starting to be recognized as a bipartisan urgency. We had the Cuyahoga tributary catching fire. We had the Valley of the Drums and Disler's Brickyard. We had all sorts of reminders that we had been profligate in the way that we dealt with this new generation of chemical pollutants, and that we had, in our quest for material things, created in very short term a toxic legacy that would have to be dealt with. And then came the Reagan era, and the folks who governed from the middle, the folks like that, Scoop Jackson and Howard Baker and those John Sherman Cooper, who recognized that it was in the bipartisan effort to improve the quality of life and the health of children that we really would see enduring progress. And suddenly environmental protection became a wedge issue that was to be traded for votes. And so most of my career with the council has been fighting rear guard actions to prevent the advances from the 1970s from being chipped away by those who and I'm always tickled by the use of the word socialism nowadays, because capitalist system is about as socialist as you find, because those who are in power and are seeking to maximize their profit tend to socialize the costs of the doing business. But we've made great progress, and I am so proud to have been associated with the council for all of these years and to work with so many of you in so many different ways on water issues, on air issues, on community issues, on issues affecting the entire nation, on issues affecting us today, on issues affecting our kids and their kids. We have made great progress, but it's only the most undiscerning person that would think that the challenges ahead of us are any less daunting or any less important. Our farming community still faces a tenuous existence, and we still have the challenges of amalgamating animals in great numbers in an industrial model that sheds pollution in order to maximize corporate profit. We face problems and a legacy of problems in the coal mining regions of eastern and western Kentucky that are continuing to pay tragic dividends to those communities who live in the shadows of those mines, many of which are unreclaimed as the coal companies shed their union pension responsibilities and their reclamation responsibilities by bankrupting in record numbers. We have achieved much in terms of industrial pollution, but there are still too many tons of toxics being emitted into the public's air and dumped in the public's water and spread and buried in the public's land. And we have much to do there. Municipal pollution has its own daunting challenges as we look at a generation that has land spread many of our septic and sewage wastes, now realizing that many of those wastes are contaminated, as are many drinking water supplies, with the so-called forever chemicals, the PFAS and PFOAs. And so we have a daunting challenge of how do we manage those wastes that historically have been land spread, but we are now recognizing have levels not only of metals, but have levels of PFAs and other chemicals that are durable in their potential for pollution. So we have our challenges there. Anyone who has seen a utility bill, whether it be a gas or an electric bill, knows that we are in a very slow death spiral in the utility industry of paying more for using less, because the fixed costs and the profits that are associated with the investor-owned utilities are being spread among people who are using less electricity, yet paying more for what they are using. In many areas in Kentucky, we have the legacy impacts of hotspots from past pollution, some of which is being remediated, but much of it has not because of a lack of funding for it. So we have our challenges. We also have challenges that we'll be facing from the infrastructure bill. There is the potential, if we are not smart in the way that we are applying these funds in order to help revitalize the infrastructure of America, we have the possibility of creating new sacrifice zones. And the council has been working with a number of communities who have been affected by limestone mining and other forms of non-coal extraction that have been paying the cost and may pay additional costs. So there's a need to make sure that whatever is being done to revitalize our economy is being done in a way that is smart, that is fair, and that is equitable. We also have a responsibility to make sure that these funds are being spent with the idea of advancing health and advancing justice as among those goals. The coming session, which starts in January, in which I will be continuing to be a KRC's lead lobbyist, but Ashley will be with me as I introduce her to the legislative committees, and she will be presenting testimony on a number of the issues. We will continue to do our tracking the way that we have done for every session since 1980 or 84. We will have issues. You may have seen recently, the Public Service Commission is notoriously underfunded for the important work that they do to try to keep rates affordable and try to keep the lights on and people warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And so we need to be out there advocating for the regulators. Similarly, the Energy and Environment Cabinet is notoriously underfunded. We need to make sure that these monies that are coming in from the federal government are in part being used to assure that the regulatory agencies on which we rely for our air, our water, and our land purity, which are the building blocks of an economy as well as a society, are being properly monitored as the economic activity ticks upwards. There will also be issues of solar and farmland. Because there is a number of utility scale solar arrays that are coming to Kentucky because we've got the sun and we've got the electric grid to tie to, but there are some controversies that have arisen over how you manage the siting of these facilities in order to maximize the wise use of land consistent with protecting the rights of individual landowners. There'll also be issues of broadband access. The companies that a number of for-profit companies that we feared when we fought the deregulation of AT&T for 5 years before we finally lost that battle, would abandon the rural areas or not invest in rural areas the way they needed to. In fact, that has come to pass. And as we use public monies to build out the broadband access that the private companies have not done, because that was not where their profit centers were, we need to make sure that those monies are being spent wisely and are not unjustly enriching folks that without those funds couldn't have been bothered to serve rural customers. For 37 years, KRC has stood the gap. We have represented those who live downhill and downstream and downwind unapologetically, unashamedly, and pragmatically. You are the reason that we could do that, each and every one of you. And I'm sitting here with this wonderful faux background behind me here, so that you don't have to see the wall that needs painting. I have not been more optimistic in some time than I am now, because I know that with an energized board, many of whom you will get to meet today, with a dedicated staff who I am so very proud to be associated with, and with a new director who, after an exhaustive and exhausting national search, could not have chosen better than they did. Somebody who 20 some odd years ago came to me fresh out of school and said, you know, Fitz, you've got my dream job. And I reminded her, no, now you've got your dream job. With your help, with your support, with your encouragement, and with your voice, I know that KRC will be there for the next 37 years to stand the gap. And I know that the best days of this organization, the best days of the health of this Commonwealth are in front of us and not behind us. Thank you all. Bless you all.
Thank you so much, Fitz, for that wonderful, for those wonderfully nice words, but also a really important brief on the state of the environment and some of the challenge that we're focused on. Before we continue, there's so much to celebrate about the work of Tom FitzGerald that I know he will never be one to ask for the praise. And I know with this many people in a meeting like this, it's going to be hard, but maybe if we can all just kind of like put our hands up in the air like this as a little applause, round of applause for him and all of the work that he has done. All of the generous things that he has done without anyone asking him to do, but just because he saw the problem for decades and decades and knew he had the ability, he had the talent to tackle those. And I know there's millions of Kentuckians who will probably not know his name, but they are better off for the sacrifices he has made for all of these years. So huge thank you. And thank you for doing that, Fitz. I know everyone really loves to hear from you on what you see as the challenges ahead. Switching a little bit now, before we hear from our KRC second director, Ashley Wilmes, we do have another trivia question. So I know some people have joined us since the beginning of this meeting. So for those who have just gotten admitted, we are doing a series of trivia questions throughout today's event. I'm going to read off a question, and if you want to play, you have 60 seconds to answer the question by submitting your answer via chat to myself directly, because of course you don't want anyone else to catch on to your answer. So you'll make sure to select Amy Carpenter in the chat if you want to submit your answer to the trivia question. And everyone who gets the question right will be entered into a drawing. And so we're going to give away 3 prizes through these trivia questions today. So our second trivia question is, who was the first winner of the Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award? So make sure you submit those answers via private chat to myself. And after we get those answers in, after we have 60 seconds expire, we are actually going to move on to awarding out our 2021 awards, the Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award and the Winnie Hepler Lifetime Achievement Award. So we'll start those here in just a few seconds. This question seems like it has people thinking a little bit harder, I have to say. But still all very good answers, everyone that's submitting them in. All right, you have a few, if you haven't submitted your answer yet, you have a few more seconds to do so. So get those fingers typing. And as you all are finishing your questions and your answers, I will turn it over to Adam Johnson.
Yeah, I didn't think about this whenever I was looking at the agenda, but I'm really glad that we had a trivia question in between mine and Fitz's comments, because I would not have liked to follow that one up. Also, it's really interesting. He came up during the Reagan years, and my first years as a practicing attorney were under Donald Trump. And I can't even imagine if I will be able to look back at 30 years and see a similar watershed. Anyways, my name is Adam Johnson. I'm a civil rights attorney in Winchester, a member of the Kentucky Resources Council Board. I have the great privilege of representing employees across the Commonwealth when they face discrimination or other mistreatment from their employers. I see my work with KRC as addressing a different form of discrimination, mistreatment in our state. On January 9th, 2010, the Board of the Kentucky Resources Council authorized the first award ever given by KRC, the Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award. It's intended to recognize those who demonstrated principled and courageous environmental advocacy for the betterment of community and the environment, as Sue Ann did for her whole life. Sue Ann smiled from ear to ear when she learned of the award, according to her sister Lucy. Sue Ann died on January 13th, 2010, after a 6-year battle with ovarian cancer. Of course, in 2020, we did not have the opportunity to gather, but KRC did award the Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award to Costa Heron, who, through her many advocacy efforts, has demonstrated principled and courageous effort for the betterment of the community and the environment. Cassia has spent the past 2 decades working to transition the state's agricultural and energy economies from extractive industries to local and community-owned cooperatives that advance equity and justice. As co-founder and president of the Louisville Association for Community Economics, LACE, Cassia is leading efforts to open the Louisville Community Grocery and support the start of other cooperatively owned businesses. Cassia is a graduate of the University of Louisville and holds a Master's of Urban Planning from the University of Michigan and is working on her first book project. However, this year's Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award goes to Preston Miles. Preston Creek made Danville rediscover Clark's Run, and without them, few would be aware such a creek existed. Over a career at Center College, he served as advisor to the Environmental Club and developed the Natural Science course, which helped lead to the Environmental Studies major minor at Center, was the chairperson of the college's first sustainability efforts, and was instrumental in installation of campus solar panels and energy efficiency improvements. Preston played a leading role in building consensus to oppose dangerous pipeline initiatives that threaten public safety in Danville, speaking to any and all groups about how the projects are bad for everyone. He's been a tireless community volunteer, including decades of service for the Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge. Preston and his wife, Cathy, have created forests and other native habitat across the 30-acre farm they live on in Boyle County and installed solar panels that shade their cage-free chickens. I actually had the great honor of working alongside Preston whenever I was an undergrad at Center College. I was following his directions on a campus composting project. I believe both of us got yelled at by the then president of the college for smelling up the entire campus. And then later, my wife had the privilege of working with him on a different sustainability project at Center, and they then got yelled at by the then president's wife. So Preston has been getting into good trouble for many years. For all of this, we are honored to acknowledge him with this year's Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award recipient. And now, as a word for Preston himself.
Hello, I'm Preston Miles, and I'm honored by this nomination for the Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award. As an answer to Ms. Carpenter's question, why are you excited about this work? I have 2 thoughts. The big environmental challenges must be addressed through large-scale actions. On that dimension, we can advocate for policies and practice, but the pace of progress is frustrating. Beyond advocacy, what I find more engaging are opportunities for action on a local level. Working with CREEK, that's Clark's Run Environmental and Education Corporation, as well as Kentuckians for the Commonwealth and the Central Kentucky Wildlife Refuge, where we can actually do something like cut out an invasive plant or add some protection to a local waterway or develop an educational opportunity for our neighbors. For me, that's more fun. Finally, I want to thank the Kentucky Resources Council for this recognition. The work of KRC addressing and advocating for the land and people of Kentucky has been an inspiration to me for many years. I also want to thank the many persons who have been challenging examples and sometimes patient coaches. People like Tom FitzGerald and Aloma Dew and Lisa Abbott and Ben Miles and Chris Schimler and Mark Morgan and Melissa McAllister, and of course, Wendell Berry. Thanks for your help along the way.
Year, that per year. So these are the types of ways that we see that a lot of times people will conflate and say poor Black communities or poor communities, but it's really, and it is definitely disproportionately
Sorry, you all, for that. We got a little clip of one of our Kentucky Environmental Leadership Institute speakers there, Jacki Patterson, at the tail end of that. If you haven't watched that video, it's really good. She's a very smart woman. But with that being said, thank you for introducing Preston, Adam. And now I'm going to turn it over to Donna Katz to introduce our Winnie Hepler Lifetime Achievement Award for 2021. And Donna, I think you might be on mute, and I know you have a lot of great things to say, so I just want to make sure we all can hear them.
Can you hear me?
Oh.
Arnita?
Arnita, are you taking it on?
I'm sorry, if Donna wants, I'll go ahead, but you know, if she wants to.
Yeah, thank you, Arnita.
I'm good. Thank you, Donna. My name is Arnita Gatson. I'm the Executive Director of the West Jefferson County Community Task Force and the State and Local Louisville Chair of the Environmental Climate Justice Change project of NAACP. In 2019, the Board of the Kentucky Resource Council established a new award to be bestowed annually on an individual whose life's work has shown the dedication, selfless commitment to nature, the courage to speak against injustice, as has been the life's essence of the individual for whom the new award was named, Winnie Hepler. From walking the picket line in support of civil rights in Louisville in the 60s to her arrest for trespassing the construction site of the Marble Hill nuclear power plant in 1977. From her early advocacy for air pollution control in Louisville to her work in 2004 and 2005 as a member of the Justice Resource Center and the Rubbertown Emergency Action towards instituting and then defending an air toxics control program in Louisville. From her work with coal-field residents in the late 1960s in support of a ban on surface coal mining, to her presence at an EPA hearing on mining-related pollution in 2012. Winnie Hepler has been a pollster in the horizon of faithful advocates for justice. Like Adam stated, while we didn't get together in 2020, KRC did award this award last year to its first ever recipient, Wendell Berry. Wendell, a past winner of the Sue and Salmon Community Advocacy Award and a friend and former teacher to Sue Ann, is a poet, novelist, activist, teacher, mentor, environmentalist, and farmer. For decades, Wendell has lived a life and pattern for others, a philosophy that values quality over quantity, community over individual aggrandizement, justice over greed, community health over individual profit, and which that has shown what it means to truly live sustainably, justly, and morally. We are pleased by the example that Wendell and his wife and co-conspirator for justice, Tanya, have set for us. This year, we award the Winnie Hepler Lifetime Achievement Award to two outstanding individuals. The first is Cathy Hinko. Cathy recently retired from the Metropolitan Housing Coalition after serving 15 years as their executive director and has benefited thousands through her 40 years of housing advocacy work. A graduate of Vanderbilt University Law School, Cathy practiced in Tennessee and Kentucky, focusing on housing law. She was the executive director of the Jefferson County Housing Authority before coming to MHC. Cathy has made a truly positive impact when it comes to fair housing, affordable and safe housing, and racial and social justice. Her work with KRC includes reforming the Land Development Code Committee, work with air pollution control, and Louisville Gas and Electric cases on rates and on-site demand management. For this, we are honored to acknowledge her with the award. Now for a word from Cathy.
I Honored to receive the Winnie Hepler Lifetime Achievement Award, along with Oscar Geralds. Thankfully, both Winnie and Oscar were interviewed by the Kentucky Oral History Project, so you can hear their voices. They were both amazing people. My work over 40 years has been in fair and affordable housing and through the Metropolitan Housing Coalition. A great partner in this work has been KRC, who recognized that these goals of fair and affordable housing are directly on point with a thriving environment. All people deserve affordable housing with clean heat, clean electricity, clean water, and clean air. And fair housing demands environmental justice. Bringing together groups whose goals overlap has strengthened us. Rather than review my work, which is our work, I will follow the examples of Winnie and Oscar to encourage all of you to keep up your work. While we all love glorious wins, the real work is slow and mundane, but very successful if you keep showing up. So here's a suggestion. LG&E, the utility company of Louisville and Lexington, has put out a several-year plan that claims a goal of lessening dependence on fossil fuel, but has no real actions and measurable steps. Write the Public Service Commission to demand a real plan. Use case number 2021-00393. How about that for real action? Because no matter where you live, the impacts of air here in Louisville will affect you. KRC, MHC, and many other partners are challenging it, but your individual input is equally important. So Winnie and Oscar, I bet this is the kind of acceptance speech you would approve of, one of action. And again, I thank you for this great honor.
Was that a great, that was great. I know Cathy, and I know she does great work. I am trying to find this, Amy, I'm having trouble here. Here we go. The second winner of the 2021 Winnie Hepler Lifetime Achievement Award is Oscar Gerald Jr. Oscar was a Lexington attorney for over 50 years who achieved many environmental protections for Kentucky. Oscar was a friend, mentor, and hero to many in Kentucky's environmental movement. He spent his life serving and advocating for others, whether it was for his family, as a Scoutmaster of Troop 3, Calvary Baptist Church member of the Sierra Club, the Nature Conservancy, and the Kentucky Natural Lands Trust, board member for legal aid of the Bluegrass and the High Street Neighborhood Center, or throughout his distinguished professional career. One of the many successes was helping to lead the fight to prevent the building of a lake that would have flooded, the Red River Gorge. He received access the fight to prevent the development of a lake that would have flooded the Red River. He received access to the Justice Award from Legal Aid of the Bluegrass and Henry T. Duncan Award. Fayette County Bar Association's highest award, KRC, is indebted to his work and is honored to recognize not only Oscar's career, but the life of a man of great integrity. Now for a word from Frankie Gerald.
I'd like to begin by saying that Oscar would be honored by this recognition. I was blessed to have him in my life for 15 years. I knew him as a modest, no-nonsense man whose approach to life was, when I saw something that needed doing, I did it. He was a Boy Scout leader, a deacon in his church, and served in the Army in Korea. He was involved in the formation of the Cumberland chapter of the Sierra Club and gave countless hours of free legal services to many good causes. But his highest profile work was in saving the Red River Gorge. When it was under threat of being flooded from a dam proposal in the 1960s, Oscar was part of a coalition of people who fought for years to stop that proposal. He gave up a year of his law practice to work on the legal efforts in that fight. But I know him as a loving husband. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you so much, Arnita, for introducing Cathy and Oscar and Frankie. Adam, thank you so much for introducing Preston. And then, of course, a huge congratulations to the people we had the opportunity to honor this year. We are so grateful for all of their work. And now we are approaching getting to introduce you as close as face-to-face as possible with our new director, Ashley Wilmes. We are so excited. She's truly wonderful. If you have not had the opportunity to meet her, you all will love her. But of course, we have our third and final trivia question of the afternoon. And this question is, what was the original name of the Kentucky Resources Council? Just a reminder, submit those answers privately to me in the chat. It's Amy Carpenter. And as you are submitting those answers, I just want to take these few seconds to read off the names of our wonderful board members who have been with us through 2021, our biggest transition yet. We are so grateful for all of their work and wisdom and just general support pretty much at all hours of the day. So thank you so much to our board members, Joe Childers, Betsy Bennett, Tim Heine, Sarah Lynn Cunningham, Allison Brodsky Elder, Lauren Heberly, Jim Hayes, Roger Schott, Larry Cook, Madison Carter, Roy Crawford, Hannah Weinstein, Jane Richards, Arnita Gatson, and Adam Johnson. Thank you all so much. And please take these last few seconds to go ahead and submit those answers. And after that, Joe, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Amy, and thanks for putting this together. You've done a wonderful job. My name is Joe Childers. I'm an attorney in Lexington, and I'm chair of the Kentucky Resources Council Board. I had the honor of serving on the search committee for the next director of Kentucky Resources Council, and along with Lauren Heberly, Betsy Bennett, and Hannah Weinstein. And we conducted a very thorough search. We had assistance from a professional firm in doing it. We interviewed, we considered over 40 applications, and we had the honor of interviewing many of the finalists, and spent an incredible amount of time. And I want to personally thank those members of the search committee for all the time they put in. Our search led us to the next director of the Kentucky Resources Council, a wonderful woman leader, Ashley Wilmes. And I want to say that I've known Fitz for 43 years. We were in law school together, and I've had the honor of knowing Ashley for about 20 years. Ashley, for the last 6 years, has operated Wilmes Legal, her own solo practice in Lexington, providing pro bono legal representation to environmental nonprofits, including Kentucky Waterways Alliance and Kentucky Heartwood. She's also gotten quite a bit of litigation experience during this time, working as a contract attorney on federal criminal cases and civil and criminal appeals, including successful appeals to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. Prior to that, from 2010 to October 2015, Ashley was an in-house counsel for Wild Earth Guardians in Denver, Colorado. There she represented, with an emphasis on the American West, She was a counsel for this environmental organization, worked with program directors to service the organization's legal needs, and litigated environmental cases in federal district courts and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 9th and 10th Circuits. From January 2009 to August of 2009, Ashley was a visiting lecturer and project attorney with the Environmental Law Clinic at the University of Denver, Sturm College of Law, where she supervised student attorneys in the representation of environmental organizations in a broad range of environmental matters, including wildlife, public lands, and air quality cases, and litigated environmental cases in federal court. Prior to that time, she was a solo practitioner in Chicago, Illinois, and also in Pennsylvania and Colorado. She provided litigation support on environmental matters, including Clean Air Act, citizen suit, and drafted briefs and provided contract services to attorneys in Kentucky and Colorado. Prior to that, she clerked at the Fayette Circuit Court for Judge Adams and Judge Clark. She was a clinic intern at the Western Environmental Law Center in Eugene, Oregon, and she attended the University of Oregon School of Law, where she had a specialty certificate in environmental and natural resources law. She was also a Student Bar Association class representative, Dean Student Advisory Council member. She is a native of Elizabethtown, Kentucky. She lives in Lexington with her husband, Tom, and their 2 sons. And she attended Center College in Danville, where she obtained a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. She's a member of the United States District Courts for the Eastern District of Kentucky, District of Colorado, the District of New Mexico, and the District of Columbia, in addition to the United States Court of Appeals for the 6th Circuit, the District of Columbia Circuit, the 9th Circuit, and the 10th Circuit. She served as a member of the Executive Committee for the Kentucky Sierra Club. She's chair of the Environmental Law Section of the Kentucky Bar Association, was a panel speaker in the 2019 KBA Environmental Law Seminar on climate change litigation, and a speaker on the Upper Cumberland Climate and Biodiversity Conference, Legal Toolbox, the Endangered Species Act. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the next director of the Kentucky Resources Council. She knows that she won't be able to replace Fitz. Nobody would be able to replace Fitz, but I think the KRC has a very bright future ahead of us with Ashley as director. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Ashley Wilmes.
And Ashley, just like Donna, I know you have so many wonderful things to say. I just think you might be on mute, which is the best way in a pandemic to introduce yourself, I think.
Absolutely. I think I saw somebody else in the chat earlier saying it's not a good Zoom if you don't have to remind people that they're on mute. So, well, I will start over. Thank you, Joe. And I was just saying, it's such a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. And, as Joe mentioned, my career and my family have taken me all over the country, but there is no place I would rather be. My roots are in Kentucky and my family is in Kentucky, and I am just honored to be leading the Kentucky Resources Council into its next chapter. I do want to say thanks again to Amy for putting all this together, to Fitz, to our staff, our board. And I also just kind of want to give a shout out to everybody that has made me feel so welcome and supported in my new role with KRC. I have really long been inspired by, the fierce advocacy of Fitz and the Kentucky Resources Council in protecting the health of Kentucky's environment and its residents. And as Fitz mentioned, this really is the dream job for me. And I'm excited to see what we get to do, what I get to do with you all in the next 37 years. But we are all here today to support the Kentucky Resources Council and the unique role it plays in Kentucky's environmental defense. I know we've come to know KRC through many different journeys, Some of you are lifelong friends of Fitz and have followed his storied career since the beginning. Some of you are new here today, not necessarily knowing another face or name, but because you're devoted to pushing our Commonwealth forward. Some of you may also be here because at one moment, one dreaded moment, you realized your little piece of the Commonwealth was under threat from an environmental abuse and you didn't know where to turn, and you found KRC that way. I first really got to know Fitz and the Kentucky Resources Council during law school. I was learning about all these laws and regulations that were meant to protect the environment from abuse. But at the same time, I continued to read about and see the devastating impacts of coal mining here in Kentucky, where we were still chopping off the tops of mountains and dumping the waste in nearby forests and streams. And as I asked about what organizations were actually doing something to help stop the abusive mining practices, KRC was always top of the list. And anytime I let folks know I was from Kentucky and interested in environmental law, the first thing they said was, have you talked to Tom FitzGerald? So the summer after my first year of law school, I think I basically showed up at Fitz's door and I asked, how can I help, make an impact here? And how can I have a career in environmental law? And he handed me, I remember this strip mining handbook. I still have the copy that he gave me about 20 years ago. And Fitz put me to work reviewing my first permit. So, over the years, even as, I went to Oregon, Colorado, and various places, I continued to check back in with Fitz. When I was back in Kentucky, I'd meet him for coffee, and he continued to serve as a mentor to me. Back in law school, I learned so much more than just the law. We put on this annual environmental conference and brought in attorneys and activists from all over the world. So I got to hear and talk to folks like Terry Tempest Williams and David Brower, Julia Butterfly Hill, Winona LaDuke, and others. I heard from Goldman Environmental Prize winners from around the globe about how they overcame hardship, built community against a backdrop of environmental justice, and fought back against powerful companies and governments that were polluting their communities. And so it was the early inspiration of these environmental heroes, seeing their courage in the face of such hardship. And then the ongoing encouragement of pioneering environmental attorneys like Fitz that have been so instrumental to me in charting my own path of environmental advocacy. I remember as an environmental attorney, one of my very first cases I litigated was a Clean Air Act case against a coal-fired power plant in a small Colorado town. And this plant had repeatedly violated its limits for several dangerous air pollutants. And the residents that approached us for help lived near the plant, and they were experiencing asthma and other firsthand effects of the pollution. They had already been impacted by historical water and air pollution, but they couldn't afford to move or to hire a private attorney. But they still wanted to make sure that their children were safe playing outdoors. And so the citizen suit we filed on these residents' behalf resulted in a settlement that ultimately shut down the plant, but always serves as a reminder to me about how a few concerned citizens can change their community. And this is one of many times that I knew I was in the right line of work, because there are places and there's people experiencing these kind of environmental abuses all over all over the world, but I mean, right here also, in Kentucky, that need our help. And here in Kentucky, if a nearby facility is polluting your air or your water, Kentucky Resources Council is the place to turn. Here at the council, we say one of our primary goals is to remove economic barriers to environmental justice. And that is what Fitz has historically done and what we will continue to do. And in the next few years, we plan to do more to expand our work and our reach, especially as we're facing the dire realities of climate change, and that's being felt here and around the globe. As Joe mentioned, I have 2 young boys, and I think a lot about what kind of world I'm leaving them and how we have to be doing more. So in the coming year, KRC is going to work on a plan to address pollution at the permit level and take on more cases that have a statewide impact. Each year, federal and state agencies issue thousands of permits here in Kentucky, which allow pollution to be discharged into our land, air, and water. Also, the Kentucky's Public Service Commission hears numerous electric utility cases that affect the future of fossil fuel plants here in Kentucky, which is the largest industrial source of greenhouse emissions here in our state. Yet in Kentucky, only a handful of those permits are ever reviewed by the public to make sure they are properly protective of human health and the environment, and that they're properly enforced. So there are really significant opportunities for us to engage and for the public to comment on these permits and make them stronger and to better protect our Commonwealth. So we're going to take a harder look at some of these permits and also work on helping the public to have a bigger voice in the public process, helping to empower more citizens to get involved on local environmental issues that impact their community. As Fitz and our 2021 award winners have reminded us today, the road for environmental protection is not always straight. It doubles back and we run into stop signs, but we've got to keep progressing. We find the detours, we find our fellow travelers, the folks that are here with us today. We get smarter and better on how we do this work together, and we move forward. This year, we represented a coalition of nonprofits in Kentucky's first, second, and third net metering rate cases before the PSC. These precedent-setting cases emerged from the 2019 General Assembly when Senate Bill 100, the utility-sponsored effort to devalue energy produced by rooftop solar customers, really was this bump in the road that we had to deal with SB 100. And it was a bump in the road for future implementation of democratic renewable energy here in Kentucky. But we didn't let that stop us. We united forces with renewable energy allies, and our coalition got creative about how to acquire the resources to hire a truly amazing expert witness. And we poured hundreds of hours into creating and delivering the skilled legal defense these kind of benchmark cases require. With that perseverance, the PSC recognized the value of local consumer-owned renewable energy. And so that's one of many success stories we've had over the coming year. And, another one of the successes that we're going to build on to do even more, between now and our next annual meeting. So when it comes to, environmental protection, to environmental justice, there is reason to act bravely. And I also know there's a reason to believe that the sun is going to shine brightly on our journey ahead. So thank you for taking this walk with us, for supporting our work, and for being here with us today. It's an honor to be here with you.
Wow, thank you, Ashley. You can all see why we're so excited about our future. I'm closing this out, and I really want to thank all of you for joining us on this rainy Sunday afternoon. It's really great to get to see you, even if it's through our computer screens. As Ashley and Fitz have said, this has been a really busy and wonderful year for KRC. We've accomplished a lot, securing reasonable utility rates for low-income Kentuckians, defending the future of rooftop solar, and protecting our communities and our environment from abuse. But none of this work would be possible without you and your financial support. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And speaking of financial support, we mailed our annual calendar year end appeal at the end of October. If you normally make your membership contributions then, we encourage you to send that back in, or you can also get on our website and donate online. Another option for giving could be to take advantage of the Bluegrass Community Foundation's Good Giving Week. That is a week that starts November 30th, runs through December 6th. And every day there are match opportunities. And those match opportunities are summarized in my background to the side. The matches range from a benefit of $100 to $250. The biggest match opportunity is Saturday morning. The first 10 organizations that raise $5,000 will get a match of $2,500. And then the next 25 to raise $2,500 will get $1,000. So the matches can seem a little complicated. We'll send out a summary slide through our email addresses, so you can take a look at that and figure out if that's an option for you. But using Good Giving is a chance to really increase your gift by as much as 50%. So now, while we're meeting virtually now, because we thought it was the safest thing to do right now, Ashley and I are really ready and would love to meet with you in person whenever you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable in person, we'd love to meet you with Zoom. We could do a Zoom lunch. We really want to talk to you. We want to get to know you, to know why you support KRC, what your favorite programs are or cases, and what you see as the future of environmental defense and environmental policy and where our priorities should be. So, if you are willing to meet with us either in person or Zoom, reach out to me. My email is donna@kyrc.org, or my phone number is 502-219-2474, and we'll set something up. Wherever you're from and whatever brought you here today, we just want to thank you for sharing your time with us. Remember, we are making positive changes and securing important environmental protections for Kentucky. And this is possible because we here at KRC, our board members, you, our members, our staff, and our volunteers are all standing together and standing up for our environment. And we want to thank you for that.
Donna, one thing, if you could, would you give everyone your specific recommendation for which of the matching opportunities would benefit KRC the most, in your opinion?
It really depends on your capacity to give. The biggest and most generous gift is Saturday morning. Now that window is open from 9 a.m. on Saturday morning until Sunday. But you notice it says the first 10 and then the first 25. And so really the best time to try to get that match is going to be at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. If you wait till Sunday morning, it will probably be gone. There are, I guess we've tried to give some guides. Like I said, it really depends on how much you can give.
Thank you, Donna.
Well, thank you, Donna. Thank you so much for everyone being here today. I can't believe I forgot this though, but I am going to put Fitz back on the spot again so he can enlighten us all with the answers to our trivia questions today. So Fitz, if you're still there and can so kindly deliver the answers to our questions, and I can remind you if you need a rundown.
Now, what was the first question again?
So the first question was, when was the last time you shined your legislative shoes?
Well, I think that would have to be 2001, which was when we passed the Comprehensive Solid Waste Reform Bill that began as a bottle bill because a 14-year-old kid from Estill County captured the attention of the floor majority leader and who told the members of the House that no bill would go out of any committee until the bottle bill came out of committee. And so for the first time in decades, a bottle bill actually got a vote, came out of committee. Of course, it didn't make it through the process, but what we ended up with instead was a durable funding mechanism called the Kentucky Pride Fund that is based in large part on an assessment on landfilled waste So we are able to export some of that cost to the out-of-state waste that comes into Kentucky, which closed out a generation of leaking landfills, as well as funding local litter control efforts on the part of local government. So it was, I'm trying to remember who was the governor at the time. I think it may have been Steve Beshear, but whoever it was didn't know the story. And so when I'm there at the bill signing and I suddenly take out my shoes and start shining them because I was told to do so by the sponsor of the bill, he looked a little confused. Why is that strange person shining his shoes in the middle of the bill signing ceremony? But that was a fun day. So now, what was the second question there, Amy?
The second question is, who is the first winner of the Sue Ann Salmon Community Advocacy Award?
Oh, if I'm recalling properly, the first winner was a dear friend of Sue Ann's, who has been an inspiration to many of us over the years, Aloma Dube. Aloma was an Owensboro-based advocate for family farms, against CAFOs and industrial pollution. And Aloma worked with the KCC, with the Sierra Club, and other organizations, including KRC. And she was a dear friend of Sue Ann's, who helped her during Sue Ann's final years, and would go on retreat with her to the mother house at Loretto, and would drive her at times when Sue Ann couldn't drive, and who, it's pretty lonely out there in Western Kentucky sometimes to be an advocate, to stand up against the big money. And Aloma was there along with her husband Lee to stand that gap. And so we were very proud that she was the first one to get the Mighty Mouse t-shirt, because Sue Ann stood 4 foot nothing, and we called her our Mighty Mouse. Now, what was that last question? I somehow have forgotten that one.
And the last question was, what was the original name of Kentucky Resources
Oh,
Council?
and I saw that Hugh Archer, the former director, I'm joining this august club of former directors with Judy Peterson on here and with Hugh Archer, who I have had the privilege of being a colleague of for a number of years. I saw that Archer actually leaked the answer to that. I was going to disqualify Pam Wood, who knows this answer, but we emerged from the Kentucky Rivers Coalition, which was a wonderful coalition of farmers and urban environmentalists. Tim Murphy was the first director, if I remember rightly, and they fought against a number of the dam Army Corps projects, or should I say the Army Corps dam projects? No, I think I was right the first time. And they fought Howardstown, Campground, Taylorsville, Yatesville, Falmouth. And while some of them they lost, I don't think they lost in a bigger way, which is they united urban environmentalists and college kids with farmers, and they gained a profound appreciation of the importance of farmland to this Commonwealth. And also, they set the stage for a farmers' revolution during the era of federal money trickling down for alternative energy, when there were some companies that wanted to strip mine the Knobs region for oil shale. And KRC, as the Kentucky Rivers Coalition, stood the gap. And that's when they morphed into Kentucky Resources Council, because they realized that everything's connected. What happens on the land happens on the water. And I was honored when Pam suggested back in '84 that I come to the council, because legal aid was under the Reagan administration's thumb, and I could no longer do the work that I wanted to do there, as Joe well knows. She suggested that we come to the council and rebuild it as the legal aid provider that it has been for 37 years. And so we owe a debt of honor to the early pioneers at KRC and to Pam. And so I'd like to know who is the winner of the trivia contest, because coming to you is an original Save the Red River Gorge, Stop the Dam bumper sticker. Okay, and these are very rare, but one is coming to you. Now, it could now say, Save the Gorge and Stop Dollywood, because you know that the most recent threat is a 900-acre development that somebody wants to build up in the gorge. But whoever wins it, Amy, is going to be the proud possessor of that bumper sticker. Thank you all.
Yes, and we will notify you by email if you are the lucky winner. And thank you all so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Amy.
Bye, everyone.